Oh, Garmin, you've done it again. You've lured me in with this watch to promise to do everything on my wrist. The Instinct crossover, a beautiful hybrid between an analog watch and a digital smartwatch from Garmin. I jumped in, I purchased it. I like analog watches, but I also miss my smartwatch, so I went ahead and got the Instinct crossover. And unfortunately, like most hybrid watches or hybrid anything, it ends up doing some things good and some things not so good. So you don't get really one product that does everything well, you get sort of a hybrid of a lot of different things. And we'll talk about it more in this honest review of the Garmin Instinct crossover. Okay, so what's the deal with the Instinct crossover? Is it an analog watch? Is it a hybrid watch? Is it a digital watch? It really is all three. I mean, this thing, Garmin, you can tell by the design, went for something that was appealing for analog watch nerds like myself. With the analog hands, the analog bezel. The bezel doesn't rotate. You've got, I think it's a 0.9-inch screen inside. And you can see, like I mentioned earlier, that it's a hybrid, right? So things are going to work well and some things are not going to work well. You can tell that the hands definitely cover up the display, right? And so you have interference by looking at the screen that way. The other thing that really bothers me too is that the display just looks dark, which, again, if you just consider it as an analog watch, maybe that's okay. Maybe you sort of want to hide that information until you need it, right? By pressing either the illumination button on the side over here, or by having the glare sort of pick up the display to look a little bit cleaner. But for me, it's extremely difficult to see this display. And I'm getting old now. I'm about 44 these days. And so the text on the screen itself is also very, very small. And so when I look at this, right, and if you tilt it so you can get a little better view, this is really small font. And so I end up having to put my hand way far away from my face to be able to see this without reading glasses. So if you wear reading glasses, or if you have problems with seeing things up close, the font on this is very, very tiny. And so that's something to consider. You can see how the hands did move out of the way when I went and hit that menu button, and so they'll move back. That's a pretty sweet feature. I do like that about this watch, that the hands quickly get out of the way so that you can see things like menu or whatever workout you're doing. When you start a workout, the hands will also get out of the way for that, and they'll stay out of the way, so they kind of position the menu items so that the hands don't obscure the data that you're trying to see on the screen. It is about a 42, I think, millimeter case. It is very, very thick. If you've been a fan of their Phoenix watches or seen their Forerunner watches, it has about the same build quality as a Forerunner watch, I would say. It doesn't feel as premium as the Phoenix watches do for me. There's just a lot of plastic on here. It doesn't feel cheap by any means, but it just doesn't have that same sort of level of refinement that the Phoenix has. The other thing I don't really like is it doesn't have the quick release bands. And so the other watches like the Forerunners, and I think even the Phoenix have a quick release band on here. This band is removable. You can pop the pin out, right? And so you can actually replace this with a standard band. I think it's a 22 millimeter lug here on this watch. And so it will allow you to run a different band on here. Now, keep in mind, if you do have the blue watch like I do, it has blue coloring on the watch. So you would need to match the band to that blue color, obviously. Otherwise, you're going to have a blue watch with a different color strap, which is okay. Garmin is really, really proud of their bands and their straps. I find these to be incredibly comfortable. I think if I put this on my wrist, I could wear this throughout all conditions. I like that it's breathable. I like that it's soft material. It's flexible. To me, it's like a hybrid silicone rubber feel. It doesn't feel sharp. It feels really bendy, really nice on your skin. I feel like the aeration here would allow my wrist to breathe and would allow me to not have any sort of rashes or any discomfort if I wore the watch for a long time. I do think it's rather handsome. I think that the watch itself does look nice. I'm not 100% sold on the blue. I think if I had to purchase it again, I would get the black just so I could match it to some other straps. I do think that it's a little large for me in my wrist. I prefer sort of a 39 to 40 millimeter watch. As an example, I've got a 39 millimeter Tudor Ranger here. You can see the difference in size. Mostly you can see the difference in thickness. These are significantly different watches in terms of their size and in terms of their weight. The Instinct is actually fairly light considering its size, but it definitely is a bulky watch. It sort of reminds me kind of like a G-Shock, which for some people, the G-Shock is a really classic watch and they'll appreciate that. For me, this is just, it's a little bit too much. Like I prefer the sort of cleaner lines of the Forerunner series, or even a Phoenix rather. This to me just, it feels a little too sporty. And maybe I would have a different opinion if it were the black one over the blue one. You can see this Ranger is just very clean, right? It's a silver watch with a black face and black strap. And so that to me is just more what I prefer from a watch and how it looks. But if you like more of a sporty watch, I think you'll really enjoy the Instinct crossover. It does have all the bells and whistles of a modern Garmin smartwatch, things like, you know, heart rate, waterproof, obviously. It has the standard Garmin charger, which is nice that they've sort of standardized that so that you don't have to worry about using a different charger if you travel, if you have multiple Garmin watches, or a spouse that has a Garmin watch. And the big thing for me is that the menu system is the same. You know, if you've used Garmin watches in the past, you know how to work the menus, you know how to change the settings, you know how to dive in and do things like watch face customizations. You know, you can choose different watch faces, you can set different settings, and all that workflow is really, really similar. The downside to me, like I said, for this watch, really is just the sort of hybridization of it just doesn't work for me personally. I do like it. I just think that it's not really the watch for me. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is the Lume on here. The Lume is actually really, really good. I'm going to pause the video and come right back with a flashlight. Okay, so check this out. So this is the Lume without me even doing anything. Like this is just from being out in the house, and you can see that it's really, really illuminated really nicely just on its own. But if I charge it with a UV light, you can really get a picture of just how bright and awesome that Lume is on this face. And this lasts a long time. Like they've done a really good job incorporating a high quality paint in here that this will last you probably all night long. I mean, I had this on when I went to bed and was just shocked at how bright it was in pitch black, and being able to see the dial without having to press the button to light up the screen. That'll give you a good view of how the screen looks after you turn the light on too. And again, you know, I hate to rag on this watch because it really is cool. It's just not for me. I think just for me, the combination of the size of it and just the bulkiness of it and the fact that like it's not a true analog watch and it's not a true digital watch just doesn't really tick the boxes for me. I'm much more of an analog watch fan. One thing I did forget to mention was the solar model, which is what this is really excellent about battery life. And Garmin smartwatches in general have excellent battery life. And so if you're looking for something to go on an adventure with, let's say you're kayaking in the Florida Keys or in the Bahamas for a week, you can probably rely on the solar panel to charge this watch and keep it running for an entire week. I think, you know, just by looking at the display, it's quoting like 27 days of battery life. And granted, if I do activities using the GPS, it's going to be less than that. But the solar panel inside is going to help preserve the battery life and keep it going for any adventures that you go on. And so ultimately, you know, is this watch for you? Well, I think if you're younger and you don't require, you know, the old man reading glasses like I need, and you can't, you know, hold the watch at arm's length when you actually want to go and take a look at your wrist and see what time it is, well, then maybe this watch is for you. But for the old fogies like me who prefer an analog watch that I can easily read at my wrist, or even a digital watch that, you know, the Garmin's, if I can update the watch face so I can see the numbers better, it's going to be something better for me. So like a Forerunner series or a Phoenix series that doesn't have that hybrid display that clouds the information and keeps it small. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you like this watch, check it out at Garmin.com. I believe they're about $600 US for the solar model, which is fairly expensive. So save your pennies, check it out. Thanks again, rate, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next video.